week's conversation, we are going to be diving into some trauma. Since we are in a universal year 6, it's all about healing, and the healing that we are all being asked to do is directly related to our family. And we're all carrying some sort of trauma. I want to take a deep dive into the numerical realm and show you how you can first detect the trauma that you may be carrying and how to heal from it. Okay, this is such an important conversation because I have witnessed so many incredible women who have come into my world, and men as well. I work mostly with women, and so that's why I'm always referring to women. But I have witnessed so many of them come into my world holding on to this deep trauma that has been imprinted in their energetic makeup, right? In their hearts, in their minds, even in their bodies, right? When we carry trauma for a long period of time, what happens is that this wound starts festering and will start showing up as a physical ailment. Okay, so when we see people that have chronic ailments such as migraines or digestive issues or lower back pain, just to name a few, there is 9 times out of 10 a trauma that's associated, that's directly linked to that physical ailment. This is why it is so important for us to know which trauma are we carrying, right? And we'll dive into what is trauma and how to find out what it is and then to actually alchemize it, right? To heal it. Because what's happening right now is that if you want to ascend, if you want to expand, right? This whole soul expansion that is happening right now, this beautiful planetary shift that's happening right now, for us to be able to follow suit with the Earth's ascension, right, into fifth dimension, we need to deal with our stuff. We need to peel back the layers. We need to look at ourselves and witness ourselves as these beautiful beings of light who chose to experience this physical lifetime, right? This whole physicality, the dualities of this planet, of Earth. And by doing so, when you become the observer, you understand that in order for you to continue to evolve, right, this soul evolution, this soul expansion, in order for you to continue this, we need to heal, right? We all came in here with our own electromagnetic frequency. We all have this electromagnetic signature. And believe it or not, when we raised our hands and said, yes, I'm diving in, I'm going in, this is it's going to be such an experience, we also chose certain life experiences and challenges that we wanted to fully live out. Because once we actually finish this cycle, right, of this physical realm that we're in right now, once we go back to source, we go back that much more enlightened. That's the whole idea why we came here in the first place, right? We all have a soul mission, we all have our purpose, we all have our destiny, but we also came here to learn. Like, what is it to be a human being? What is it like? Like, what's this all about, right? So you raised your hand to actually come here and experience this, right? And in numerology, having been doing this for over a decade now, I have navigated the numerical realm like you wouldn't believe, right? It's an infinite universal language. And even after 11 years of doing this, I am still not done, right? There are still facets of this realm that just blows my mind. I am the forever learner, right? I'm the forever scholar. That's my heart's desire 7 coming up, right? The 7 is the Sherlock Holmes of numerology. Always wants to go deeper down the rabbit holes, trying to figure things out. What is the truth, right? So for me, numerology is like my love language, right? I love it because it's infinite. And I know it's always going to keep me on my toes. It's always going to have me unveil other aspects of myself and of my clients as well, and my students, because I also teach numerology. So when we chose to enter this beautiful planet, we came in with a soul's blueprint, right? We have our soul blueprint, it's our soul contract. And within that soul blueprint, there are sequences, there are numerical codes, right? So when I say soul blueprint, I'm referring to your chart, your numerology chart. Okay. So within your chart, your blueprint, there are so many numerical codes. There are sequences, right? There's so many nuances. And I love playing around in somebody's chart so that they better understand themselves, right? They have the deep sense of self. Once you have a deep sense of self, then you can start making different decisions. And when you make different decisions, that's where your life transforms, right? We're all seeking that. We all want to transform. We all want to like expand. We want to up level. We just want to bring in more joy, more happiness, more success, more wealth, right? More health, everything. Why wouldn't we want that? We are worthy and deserving of that. And so within your chart, there is a numerical sequence, right? That is called your life path sequence. Okay. I talk a lot about the life path sequence. It's part of your core sequence. So there are 3 numbers in your core sequence. So think about like a triangle. So you have your life path number, which is your what? What did you come here to learn, to experience, to share, to master? There's your destiny number, which is your who. And this is like your zone of genius, your brilliance, your highest potential, right? Your magic. And then there is your heart's desire number, which is your how. How does your soul yearn to express itself? How do you want to show up in this lifetime? Today, we're going to be talking about the life path number, and it's a life path number sequence. Why? Because when you add up all of the digits in your date of birth, you most likely will end up with double digits. Okay. Now, if you're not a master number 10, 11, 22, 33, or 44, you're going to have to reduce it to one number. So I always give myself as an example. So when I add up all of the digits of my date of birth, I end up with 26, which is not a master number. And so I have to reduce it to one digit. So 2 plus 6 is 8. So I'm not a pure 8. I'm not a life path number 8. I am a 268. That is my sequence. I invite you to do the same. You can pause this video and you can, well, if you're watching live with me, no, we'll catch the replay. But if you are watching the replay, then just pause it and calculate. Just put a plus sign in between every digit of your date of birth. And then whatever you finish with, if it's a double digit, I want you to reduce it to one number unless it's one of those master numbers, okay? And this is where the magic happens. This is where it becomes really powerful. Within that number or those numbers, okay, lies the trauma that you came here to experience, right? And it's hard for our human mind to wrap our mind around this whole concept. It's like, why would I want to make myself suffer? Why would I want to make my life challenging? Why would I do this to myself, right? And you didn't do it to yourself. You're doing it for yourself. It's about expansion, right? Once we understand why we came here and why we brought in that specific trauma or traumas, right? We can understand why. When we become the observer, like I said earlier, we're able to disassociate ourselves a bit and look at it from another perspective. Like, okay, now I get it. I went through this trauma so that I can understand this about it, and I can actually grow from that situation, from that challenge, right? And then become that much more awakened, empowered, or more compassionate, or more understanding, or do you know what I mean? It's like there's always, always, always a way for us to alchemize our challenges, our traumas. Now, when I talk about trauma, I don't necessarily mean the big ones, the huge ones like your house burnt down, right? Like me. I went through that when I was 14. Our whole entire house burnt down right to the ground, and we lost our neighbor as well. And I was 14 at the time. So I mean, that's a huge trauma, right? That left such an imprint in my life, right? Within me. But we're not just talking about those kind of traumas, right? Or like a really bad accident or, major abuse. I'm not talking about just that kind of trauma. I'm talking about also the kind of trauma that builds over time. So if you had, let's say, a parent that would always, always criticize you all the time. It's like you could never do anything right. There was always something wrong with what you did, right? It was never good enough. Over time, after years and years and years of being told this creates a trauma. It's a deep trauma. So we're not talking about just the big events, you know, the ones of magnitude. We're not just talking about that. We're talking about the ones that can form over time. Okay? So it's so important to know, and there in each number, right? Every number holds a frequency. I've said this before, right? There's a duality in it. There's like a yin and yang, right? There's light and shadow, just like everything in this universe. And think about it, the universe is built on numbers, right? And so every number holds this type of trauma that you came here to experience. And I've checked them all, and through my coaching and through my teaching, I've witnessed just how much information each of these numbers will hold for us. And we are able to drop the victim mentality. That is so important. And I know it's hard. I've been there. Being a life path 8, I brought in some trauma that has to do with personal power, right? It has to do with abuse. If you have an 8 in your life path number, it could be that you are a 2, 8, 10. It could be that you're a 1, 8, 9, or like me, 2, 6, 8, right? Or 3, 5, 8. It doesn't matter if you have an 8 in that life path sequence, you brought in that type of trauma to alchemize, right? To experience and to alchemize. And it's difficult. It's easier said than done when someone says, well, you need to drop the victim mentality, right? You need to like just disassociate yourself with this trauma. Easier said than done. So for me, in a lot of my relationships, I ended up going through some pretty intense abuse, especially when I was a teenager, right? And it all comes back to not standing in my power, not recognizing how powerful I am, right? Not wanting to stand in my power because I'm actually afraid of it, because it's a very, very, 8 is a very, very powerful number. It's the CEO, it's the powerhouse of spirituality, right? Of the soul plane in numerology. And so that's why it takes somebody that has, when you have that number in your life path sequence, it will take you longer to develop your fullest potential, because the 8 is like a massive energy to work with. Okay, it's doable. It'll just take that much more longer than maybe someone who had, let's say, the 6. Okay, so each number has this trauma. So the 8, I want to give you a few examples. So the 8, it's about abuse, right? That's the trauma that you're going to bring in if you have that number. Why? Because it is through the traumatic experiences of abuse, whether it's physical, whether it's verbal, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Like, it all comes back to the same thing. When you start looking at that experience of abuse, you will understand that it all comes down to a lack of personal power. And so this trauma that you went through that had to do with abuse, it's to teach you and show you that you're so powerful. You're so much more powerful than you're ever led to believe. And it will bring you down through the trenches to get you so uncomfortable, to the point where you will push back. And that's what happens with the 8. The 8 will take on a lot, but when you push it to the wall, it will fight back with lion energy. Okay, that is what the 8 is all about. It's about personal power, right? Amongst other things. Okay, but just for this conversation, we're going to talk about that. So the 8 is about abuse, and the lesson behind it and how to alchemize it is to remind yourself that you are so powerful. And the only reason why you ended up in this kind of situation was to remind yourself, right, of what you are not meant to experience for a lifetime, right? This is just this is a hurdle. This is a moment in your lifetime that you get to experience and you get to actually grow and expand from. Okay. Now, this conversation will require for you to really like take a step back and look at it from that perspective. Look at yourself like a soul that came down here to play in the physical realm, right? That's what we need to start. That's how we need to start looking at ourselves. Like, because when you are too anchored into everything that is going on, if you don't take that moment to say, hold on just a second, I'm not meant to experience this forever, for this entire lifetime. It can't be. When you start speaking to yourself that way and you take a step back, that's when you can start seeing things through different lenses, right? Okay. Hopefully this resonates with you. And if I'm triggering you when I'm saying that, while I'm saying this, I'm actually really excited about that, because that means that I'm actually planting a seed within you. Okay. I'm actually kind of shaking things up a bit. It's like that snow globe. I'm shaking up your snow globe. And that's okay. Sometimes you need somebody to shake your snow globe in order to start seeing things differently. And it gets uncomfortable, especially when we've been, associating to this whole victim mentality. It's like, yeah, but I'm a survivor of abuse, right? It's like you define yourself from that. And when you strip yourself from that title, who are you? That's what you need to go look at. Okay, we went deep with the 8, right? We'll talk about another number, the number 5. If you have the number 5 in your life path sequence, there's addiction involved. And addiction could very well be that your parents, one of your parents, or it could be a sibling or somebody very close to you, had an addiction. And it created trauma and chaos and instability, right? And that, what happens is that you carry that, and then it will come out in your relationships. It will come out in your health. It will come out in your ability to create a sustainable and solid foundation for yourself. You won't know how, right? Because you had that chaos. You had that chaos, like a crazy merry-go-round that was just spinning out of control, right? That's the trauma that the 5 will bring in. Right. And what happens is that, and it could be addiction, and addiction can look so different. It's not just about like substances, right? It could be a workaholic. If you had a parent that was like so driven and just addicted to his or her work, and the house would be in shambles, or not even picked up, or not tidy at all, or maybe there were no meals that were ready. Everything was kind of just, let's just throw something in the microwave or whatever. It could be something like that as well. There goes my light. And so let me just fix my light here. There we go. I'm back. And so that's the 5, right? It brings in that trauma that's related to chaos, and 9 times out of 10, it is related to addiction. Okay. Another one that I see a lot is the 9. The number 9, because it's the number of completion. I call it the light working number. It's the number of the light worker because it's the highest number of the base numbers, right? 1 through 9. And it carries so much integrity, so much leadership, right? It has that humanitarian type of energy. It is such a gorgeous energy. And so many light workers that I work with have this number. They have the 9, right? That's part of their life path sequence because they came here to learn how to release and let go what no longer serves them, right? So that they can start leading themselves and then others with so much integrity, right? They came here as the beacons of light, okay? And so the 9's trauma, right? The trauma that if you have the 9, right? Remember your life path sequence. If you have a 9 in your life path sequence and you are feeling like there was deep injustice, right? Deep injustice in your childhood, that's the trauma we're talking about here. So I had this client who she just had so much animosity and so much resentment and so much hurt regarding her mother, okay? because there was so much injustice that had been done towards her. See, the nine's energy is about, it's the humanitarian number, right? It's about making this world a better place. And so it's all about justice, right? It has to do with that integrity and that justice. And so that is a huge trauma to carry. And a lot of the people who have this number in their life path sequence will have a lot of family issues. It's like there will be a lot of unresolved feelings. They'll feel like they're the black sheep of the family, like the square peg. There'll be a lot of that, and that's trauma that will show up in every aspect of your life, right? So for instance, this client that I had that had this number, and she was having such a hard time with her mother, she always found herself in a deep state of depression, right? Because she knew she couldn't go back in time to actually heal that, like to have a conversation to reverse, right? But she kept finding herself back in the past, going down memory lane all the time, remembering and reenacting all of the times where there was like so much injustice towards her. And so we were able to actually work through that, right? We're able to actually learn what I did with her. And with the number 9, if you have this in your life path sequence, is that you need to start forgiving. And you have to forgive yourself first. It has nothing to do with the other person. It's about you, right? So you need to first let go. You have to let go of everything and cut ties with all of that stuff. And I teach this in Force Field, which is one of my self-mastery courses. And so you learn how to actually release all that, because as long as you're holding on to the injustice, like waving that flag and saying, you didn't treat me right, and there was so much injustice, and it's not fair. The more you do that, the more it's causing an energy leak. And that's why a lot of people with this number in their life path sequence end up depressed, because they just can't seem to shake it off and let go, right? They just can't let go, because in their mind, it's like, if I let go of this injustice, right? If I forgive her, we're talking about my client who had a lot of resentment towards her mom. If I forgive her, then she gets set free. She's liberated. But what my client didn't fully understand at that point, wasn't aware of, is that it was her that was going to be liberated. She was going to liberate herself, right? It had nothing to do with her mother. She had to let go. And so she needed to forgive herself for holding on to that for so long and having that play such a huge part in her relationships with her partner, with her children, in her work. She had a lot of problems, a lot of issues with authority, right? You can imagine, because if she wasn't able to have a nourishing relationship with her own mother, and this is not just for the 9, right? It's just it's specific for the 9, but I mean, other people have this issue too without even having the 9 in their chart. It's somewhere else in their chart. And I lost my train of thought. But what she's trying to do is that she's trying to hold her mother accountable, right, for everything that she had done to her. But it was all coming out, and it was all seeping out in every aspect of her life, in her health, right, in her ability to lead herself, in her ability to show up as an incredible mother, in her ability to be a leader, in her career. It was just such turmoil for her. And when we worked on forgiveness, self-forgiveness first, and then being able to let go, her entire life changed, and even her own health, it was incredible. She used to have a really bad migraines because she was always in her head, always going back, always replaying all the time. It was crazy, right? And then she started feeling more energetic. She had more vitality, right? And she was actually looking forward to the future and not always living in the past, right? Now, she wasn't able to mend her relationship with her mother because her mother had passed away. But it was fine for her because she understood the energetics behind all of it. right? She understood she had to take a step back, and she had to let go of this victim mentality again, and she had to let go of, the flag of injustice that she was waving, right? She had to let go of all that. So those are three examples. So we talked about the 5, we talked about the 8, we talked about the 9. I could also talk about the 6. The trauma that the 6 will bring in, right? If you came in with a 6, whether it's one of your extended numbers or it's the end product of your life path, the 6, it's about overexertion that becomes like such a huge trauma that it ends up in a burnout, right? So this is the type of trauma that I was talking about, how it happens over time, right? It's not just one big thing. It's like it just happens over time. The 6 has the propensity to overgive, over nurture. And while she's overgiving and over nurturing, she's completely neglecting herself, right? And the reason why that happens is because she never ever felt like she was worthy and deserving of receiving love. So there's an abandonment that happens with the 6, right? That's the trauma is related to abandonment. And so you will see this play out in relationships, absolutely. In money, the person that has the 6 in their life path sequence will have a hard time receiving money, because money is just an energy, right? It's just an energy. And if you are not capable of receiving love, of receiving compassion, right? If you don't feel like you're worthy and deserving of receiving, then money is going to come in sometimes, but then it's almost like you put a chokehold on it, right? It's almost like you stop it because you don't know what to do with all of this abundance. You're not used to it. You're not used to it. If you're born and raised in an environment where, again, you weren't considered worthy of being loved, right? Where you were abandoned, where you were rejected, then you are going to have a hard time receiving money continuously, like in a sustainable way. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you could see again how this trauma will start seeping into all of the cracks, right? It's like it's going to show up in the relationship, it's going to show up with your wealth, it's going to show up in your health, because the 6 is every time I see somebody with a 6, they have gone through either a burnout, they're on their way to a burnout, right? It's like it's burnout city, because it's such a number of extremes, right? It's like I'm gonna give it my all, I'm gonna overgive, and then I'm forgetting myself, and then all of a sudden it's like I can't give anymore, right? I spread myself out way too thin, and I'm completely depleted. Completely depleted. And the trauma behind all that is, well, you're not worthy of receiving anything. That's why you overgive, so that you can build that connection, so you can feel like you're worthy, like you're recognized for something, you're appreciated, right? That's why a 6 will overgive. It's to feel like they're needed, to feel that love, to try to feel that connection. And in order to heal that trauma, it's to really start looking at yourself as the divine being that you are. It's to start really learning how to put your own needs first, and that comes with personal boundaries, right? And you start, it's like micro shifts, because when you speak to somebody with a 6 and you say, well, now you need to put yourself first, all of their shit comes up, all the trauma comes up, right? But who am I? I mean, I'm going to feel so guilty, and I'm going to feel ashamed, and all this stuff, right? So it's like little micro shifts. It's like you have to learn how to say no when you want to say no. You have to learn how to connect with this higher vision that you have for yourself, right? Because we all have dreams, we all have desires. So I teach my clients how to tap into their deepest desires. And I will tell you, sometimes I've just finished a coaching call a few days ago with this beautiful woman who she was having a hard time telling me, or even knowing what her deepest desires are, right? So sometimes we have to go way back, because this woman, she had put everybody in front of her, everybody's needs in front of hers, and she never really tapped into what made her happy. So it was foreign to her. When I asked her the question, she could not answer. And it brought up a lot of stuff for her. It's like, holy crap, I can't even answer that question, right? How can I be happy, right? And how can I create these personal boundaries if I don't even know what makes me happy? So sometimes we have to unravel a lot, we have to dismantle a lot. And that's how we transmute this trauma. This is how we let go of the wound, right? Of this trauma of abandonment. It's like, I'm not good enough. I have the 6 in my life path sequence, right? I'm a 268, and my biological father left the house when I was a year old. I saw him maybe once or twice after, and that was that. I never saw him after again. So that was a huge abandonment issue, especially for a father-daughter relationship, the dynamic. It's like, well, if the man of my life, like the first man that's supposed to love me and make me feel like cherished and wonderful and secure, can't even stick around, then I guess no other man will, right? And that's where the standards started going down, right? I started lowering my standards because I so wanted to be loved. I so want to be part of a family, right? That unit, that family. Remember, the 6 is the nurturing visionary, right? It's about nurturing, it's about family, it's about community, it's about connecting, the connectiveness, right? And so I did everything that I could to recreate this dream that I had, but I did it like I did it with such low standards, and that's what brought me into all of the abusive relationships, which just happens to be the trauma of my 8, right? So I've given you, it's already been 30 minutes, I've given you so many examples of how the numbers hold trauma in your energetic makeup. And if we don't heal it, and like I said earlier, we're in a universal year 6, we are being invited to heal our stuff, to start peeling back the layers, to start looking at our things, and to stop being so freaking busy with life. That's why we were in a lockdown for so long. We actually had the opportunity to stop running around and being busy to be busy, right? I'm busy being busy, and to actually start cultivating this stillness, this aspect of like inner work and just inner communion, right? Going to communion with ourselves, right? There's a reason why it was a series of 2s, 2020, right? And then it was 2221, and then it was like 2022. It's like the 2 is all about connection. It's all about going into communion with yourself. It's about connecting with your heart, your soul, your higher self and source, and then connecting with others. That's what we're being asked to do, to connect with ourselves and to start healing ourselves, to love ourselves so much that we start putting ourselves first. And that, I'm telling you, once you do this, once you put yourself first, it's a game changer. Your life will change 180. It's like, it's going to be, this is what happened with me. The fact that I had the 6 in my life path sequence, this is one of my biggest teachings. And I am still unraveling this. I still am, because I was so deeply imprinted with the programming of, you don't deserve it, you're not worthy of it. Who are you to be asking for that, right? Who are you to be receiving that? And so I have been on this beautiful healing journey, and I've been peeling back layers and layers, and every time you ascend, because it's an upward spiral, that's how I've been shown, right? Every time you do a full circle, it's like, oh, there's another layer of that trauma or of that life lesson that you just need to modify. It's not as intense as the first couple of layers, you know what I mean? But there's always a bit of like redefining and tweaking and stuff. So as you're ascending, it becomes easier to actually navigate, right? These layers, right? It becomes easier because you know yourself, you have a deep sense of self, such a deep sense of self, and you become unshakable because you're so aligned with your higher self. You're so aligned with your vision, with your purpose, with your mission, your destiny. You're so aligned with who you are that no thing and no one will knock you off path anymore. Do you understand? It's like you are able to lead yourself with so much certainty and so much compassion. And if you want to know more about how to do that, if you are interested in deepening this type of work with me, there are different ways that you can work with me. I offer a type of numerology reading, which is much more than a reading. It's called Light Leap. And it's actually like a breakthrough session where we have 90 minutes together on a Zoom, and it's recorded. You get everything so that you can re-listen to it, because there's just so much wisdom and so much magic that happens during this time together. But we dive into your codes and we really take a deep dive into a certain aspect. You're the one that chooses what it is that you want to shift. And we go deep. We go deep and you will experience breakthroughs. I promise you, this is the experience that all my clients have, and they're just like astounded how just 90 minutes together, they can shift. They can shift something that has been holding them back for so long, right? We're breaking glass ceilings here, okay? And we're entering through like these incredible portals of potentiality for you. But it's all deeply rooted into your codes. So this is why it's so powerful. It is powerful, powerful work. And because I'm an energy healer as well, there is some energy work that is going on as we are talking. And at the same time, I have all of my channeling abilities that come online as soon as I am doing a reading and the numbers are in front of me. Boom, that's when it starts, right? The other way is through one-on-one mentorship. It's called Luminary. So you can have a 3-month, 6-month, a 9-month, or 12-month container. It all depends. You get access to all of my programs. I have several programs that are self-study programs. You have access to all that, and you have me in your back pocket, right? And this is where we soar. I mean, this is where we soar. And last but not least, I have the Unshakable Femme, which is my newest offering. This is a mastermind, and this is an 88-day experience, a journey into certain codes of your chart where we put you back in the driver's seat. This is such an extraordinary journey, because after this, you will never, ever stop on the side of the road and ask for directions, because you'll know exactly where you're going. You'll have such a deep sense of self, right? And the Unshakable Femme, I mean, Unshakable says it all. There could be chaos happening around you and you will remain grounded, you will remain focused, and you will have this emotional intelligence and this love and compassion for yourself. It won't even matter what's happening around you. Really, you'll be able to just navigate that wave like a pro. Okay, so that is the Unshakable Femme. If you're interested in learning more, I will put the links in the description from this video, and you can always connect with me. You can send me a DM through either Facebook or IG. So hopefully this has shed light for you. It's a year of healing. We still have a few months left in 2022. And if we don't do the work, it's just going to follow us next year, right? And it's going to become just that much more difficult for us to actually dive into it. Right now, the energy is supporting us and is guiding us, right? Remember, everything is happening for you, not to you. So if you know anyone that would benefit from this kind of message, it would mean the world to me for you to just share it. Please like and subscribe. And again, thank you for joining me. And on that, I'm sending you all so much love, so much light. Ciao for now.